Well, there was a recent thread on Twitter that asked, when did you really sense the honeymoon was over? They got a lot of responses. I'll share a few with you. One woman wrote and said, my husband got excited thinking I was getting sexy under the sheets, but I was actually just opening a Kit Kat I didn't want to share. Another wrote, my husband and I are still in bed at 3 p.m. waiting for the other to get up and make coffee this morning. A guy gets home and breathlessly tells his wife, I'm afraid there's been a terrible accident involving all the things you asked me to do today. A man named Keith wrote a bit of dialogue between he and his wife. Keith, look, I love you, but I made exactly the amount of cheese and crackers I want to eat. Her, but I only, the exact amount. He didn't continue on from there, but we can imagine what the... I like this one. Relationship status. My wife asked me what I wanted for dinner and then told me I was wrong. Wife, you pick dinner. Pizza? No. Tacos? No. Subs? No. What do you want? It's up to you. A woman named Jackie tweeted me to my husband, I'm exhausted. Him, didn't you take a 2-hour nap? Me, what do you mean by that? Cranky. Have you noticed that people seem really cranky these days? I mean, just really, really cranky. It's kind of in the national atmosphere. During the political stuff we're going through right now, we have two really opposite extreme crankiness. We have Bernie Sanders cranky and Donald Trump cranky. Both cranky, but really different. One of the earliest definitions of cranky, comes from the 1787 Provincial Glossary, defining the word from the Dutch word for sick. One can get cranky when one is sick, especially men. We men do not do sickness as well as women. We just don't. Another definition of crank means curved or crooked, like a cranky road. When we are imbalanced or bent out of shape, we can be called cranky. When a ship at sea was imbalanced, it was called cranky. So it means off balance. It means uncentered, essentially. Now, I lived most of my adult life in New York. New York brings cranky to a whole new art. New Yorkers are, we do cranky so well there. Now, there are so many people there, and all vying for the same thing at the same time. It can get very overwhelming, even for good metaphysical students. Now, the traffic here is very cranky-making. I mean, even more so than in New York. At least in New York, it moves a bit. In Seattle, it was like, oh, let's have a picnic right here. While on the hill, looking down. Now, a lot of you know that I worked in the Silent Unity telephone prayer room. I was there for 3 years. For the first year, I was a regular telephone person, praying with 100 people, at least 100 people, for 8 hours a day. This is what I really call the training for this work. I went through ministerial school, but the real training was praying with 100 people a day for 8 hours a day. I then became a trainer, training others how to do this work, and then I became an assistant supervisor. So I saw a lot, and I heard a lot. A couple of times a day, I would personally get a number of cranky calls, what I might call cranky, or a little abusive at times. Some people who called were scared. A lot of people, when they got news, the first thing they would do would be to call Silent Unity. So they were unsure of what was happening to them or the people they loved. So you understand that sometimes people were just not in their usual place. Some of the calls I got, I answered the phone one day and someone said, "You're a man." I said, "Yes, I am." And they said, "I want a woman." I said, "Please hold." And I would try to find someone who... And then somebody came up to me and said, "There's a man on the line and he will only pray with a man." And I was the only man on that evening. So I finished up with my call and went to the supervisor desk and I talked to this guy and he says, I said, I understand that you have an issue that you needed to talk with a man about. He says, yes, I do. I have a real estate deal going through, and I want you. It's like, this was the male issue you had to talk. Okay. Yes, friend, I will be happy to pray with you. Or I get, you sound young. So, well, thank you. At the time, I was. Give me somebody older who knows how to pray. Resist not evil, please hold. Or, that wasn't a good prayer, you didn't convince me. It's like, let me try that again, okay? Hold on one second. And then some people think you have a hotline to God. I really need you to pray harder than that. Oh. Hold on, okay, let's try that again. There is no praying hard, all right? There's no such thing as praying hard. It's just praying. It's just opening ourselves up to the universe. So sometimes people just got a little scared, and it would come out in the most unusual ways sometimes. I cannot tell you how many people tell, I need you to bless my lottery ticket. Don't you think if that worked, I would be winning the lottery every week? That was what I was thinking. My prayer was, of course, dear one, more than happy to share. The abundance of God is yours, however it comes forth. So there was one woman who called, and she said, I hate men. And I said, would you like to speak to a woman? She said, no, you're a guy. I need to talk to you. I hate men. You're all vile. You're terrible people. And my prayer, I said, finally, she was going on. I said, is there a prayer in here? Somewhere. And she said, yes, I want God to make me a virgin again. It was my second day on the job, and I had no idea what to pray with her. Yeah. Divine order is at work in your life. Shall we send you some prayers? To this day, I don't know what that prayer would be. So we get scared. We get scared, and it comes out in very strange ways sometimes. And that's what cranky is at its heart, is fear. We're really afraid when things happen to us, through us, and we don't know how to deal with it. I believe we get even crankier when we are not heard, when we are not acknowledged for the pain or the fear that we're going through. When we don't get a sense that anyone, maybe especially God, has heard or understood just how scared or upset we are at the moment, about how life isn't working out the way that I would like it to, or life throwing me a curveball that we really are having a hard time recovering from. So we come to unity with all this, and sometimes it seems that we cannot share in a way that is authentic without somebody saying to us, have you prayed about that? Or, here's an affirmation, you shouldn't feel that way. That is what we call metaphysical malpractice. And I really hope never to hear that here. The only response to anybody sharing that is, I'm so sorry you're going through that. And I'm really glad you came this morning so you could be with us. To find the healing, to find the abundance, to find whatever it is that we need. But we're so happy that you joined us when you're feeling that way. Because that's why we're here. That's why we have Unity of Bellevue, to come when we feel like there's no other answer. Or if we're feeling really wonderful, to celebrate that truth and to have that wonderful energy to share with others. Now, it's true that sometimes crankiness is the result of having not enough sleep. Or maybe the blood sugar is low. Or some other short-term physical reason. But the cranky that I'm talking about here is more existential in nature. A great example of that is what happened to our great teacher, Jesus the Christ. He was going through his final week on the planet. And Jesus and the disciples were in Jerusalem for the Passover celebration. And he decided to go to the temple, and he saw all kinds of activities happening. Merchants selling sacrificial animals, money lenders. It looked like Bellevue Art Festival. People haggling over all these products, over all this energy and all this selling going on. What happened was Jesus lost it. He totally lost it. And this would get him into anger management classes today. He turned the tables over. He started beating up the merchants, pushing them, whipping them. He was screaming at them, "You have made a house of prayer a den of robbers." Now, this didn't sit too well with the Pharisees and the other leaders of the temple, because the merchants were paying for the upkeep of the temple with their tithes, what they were getting. So this upstart coming along and upsetting it was very, upsetting to the leaders. And besides, why was he so surprised this was happening? It had been going on for centuries. It wasn't anything new. Plus, the Pharisees were really upset that Jesus had been setting up his own ministry within the temple confines. Direct competition. It would be like if some former minister opened up around the corner at the temple. Like, "Oh, I'm here Sunday morning, but don't bother with me. I'm okay." We've gone through this before, and it's not a very comfortable kind of situation. So that night, because the town was full due to the holiday, they stayed in Jerusalem's version of Bothell. They had to go all the way out of town. Now, they didn't have a car. They had to either walk or ride on donkey. So the next morning, they came back for the holy days. Now, remember, there were no diners, there were no Denny's, there were no IHOPs then. They were wandering along. There was no food. They were really hungry. Jesus, his blood sugar was way down. He found a fig tree. He went up to the fig tree, and it didn't have any fruit because it was out of season. Do we remember what Jesus did next? He cursed the fig tree, and it died. It was out of season. Jesus. What did you think was going to happen? So he cursed the fig tree. It fell over. So he turns to his disciples, and they were all like, "I think I have a granola bar here. Don't kill me." But he says to them, "Just have faith, and whatever you ask in prayer will happen." What? You just killed a fig tree, and you turn and say, "Look what happened with prayer." So there was some really weird editing going on here. Okay? Somebody had taken something out and had put something else in. It sounds like a positive spin to me on the part of the writers or the editors of the scripture here. He just offed a poor fig tree out of season. This is out of season. He knew that there was not in season for figs. The poor tree was standing there minding its own business, just being out of season, having an off time, just hanging out, waiting for more fruit to grow. From no choice of its own, and because his blood sugar was low, he gets cranky, curses a tree to death, and says, "God answered my prayers, and you can kill a fig tree too, if you have faith." Now, I had to think a lot about this one. This is one of those ones I don't understand the scripture. So when we try to figure it out with our head, we need to stop doing that. We need to go within. So I went into prayer. I went into meditation. I asked Spirit, whenever I have a challenge with anything like this, what does this mean? What came to me in meditation is that it's not about what happened to the tree, which is, after all, just a symbol. Most of this stuff did not happen. A lot of this stuff was just stories that they created to demonstrate a truth. But what it's really talking about here is that the power within us can affect everything around us. What you say, positively or negatively, can affect everything around you. If you're cranky, if you're upset, if you're angry, raging about your life, about what is or is not happening, the divine power will radiate forward, and the result will be what you're holding. So you're a powerful enough child of God to radiate energy of resentment, fear, anger, and within 500 feet, we now know, those around you, behind you, on the side of you will feel it. Wonderful group called HeartMath in Northern California, made up of scientists, spiritual leaders, and others, are proving the power of the heart and what the heart can do. So anger, wrath, resentment, venom, we hold this, but we're not holding it, we're radiating it. We're infecting everybody around us with our energy, positively or negatively. Does anybody work with anyone like that? We just try to, you try to avoid the circle of ooze. Anybody live with anybody like that? Harder to get away from. You know, it's hard to do that when people are just releasing all this negativity day after day after day. Now, it could be anger, sadness, depression, worry, anxiety, or any combination that gets in our way of living our lives. If we're doing that, we're also affecting others. It came to me that Jesus was being executed within days of all this happening, and I think I'd be a little cranky too. If I knew that this was the end of my life and nothing seemed to be working around me, I think I'd be very upset and a little scared. He knew what was coming. He was looking for confirmation that he was loved. He was looking outside of himself to know that he was loved, but what did he get? The temple and the leaders didn't offer prayer to him. They offered birds and rugs. The tree didn't offer any nourishment. It offered nothing at all. His disciples, his friends, got drunk and fell asleep on him just when he needed them, right before he was arrested and crucified. Has anybody ever felt that way? Am I the only one here who has felt this way? The whole planet just seems to have forgotten about me, and there's no support anywhere. The great thing about Scripture is we can find a story for everything we're going through in our lives. And this is the one who knew his oneness the best and the most powerfully felt no support whatsoever right before passing away. It's a horrible feeling we go through, but we go through that. It's part of what we go through on the planet here. Does it seem like no matter how much spiritual work you do, how much meditating or reading of Fillmore or reading the wonderful material we have here or showing up here Sunday after Sunday, getting up early on a Sunday when I could have been in bed sleeping, I show up here and say, God, look at me. I'm here. I got dressed. I even showered. I put my phone on vibrate. Show me. And we don't see it. Life keeps coming at us. So rude. How dare life keep showing up this way? You pray for abundance. You've been praying for abundance, and not only do you not get more money, you lose your job. You pray for health, and the doctor calls and needs to see you ASAP. You pray for just 1 week without family drama, and somehow your family gets your unlisted phone number. How? You know, the truth is sometimes we just got to get divinely cranky. You do. You just got to get cranky. And crankiness here is about the power of no. The power of no is something we as children of God have to use to bring forth the good that we need. The power of no is divine. I know there are a lot of people who have a really hard time saying no. No, I will not be abused again. I think one of the most powerful, one of the most holy songs I've ever heard is by Gloria Gaynor. I will survive. Go, walk out the door, turn around now, you're not welcome anymore. It's hymn number 34 in your book. We need to say that. This is not going to happen again. No, get your own cheese and crackers. This is my Kit Kat. I bless you as you find your own. I will not listen to you moan about your boss anymore. Talk to your boss. Triangulation never works. It doesn't work in our lives, it doesn't work at work, and it doesn't work in our church. If you have a difficulty with anybody, anywhere, talk to them. Talking to your friend about what I'm doing with furniture will not help you find peace. Talk to me. If the board is doing something you don't like, talking to people who don't come here, or even people who come here are not on the board, will not help. Talk to the board and say, here's what I'm going through. And they will be happy to chat with you. If your friend is doing something you don't like, talking to another friend is not going to change it because they're not that person. It's easy to talk to the other person because there's nothing involved. Talking to the person is scary, but you've got to do it. And say, no, that will not work for me anymore. No, I will not be cheated on anymore. I am worth way more than that. Goodbye. I am not the family shrink, and I am not the family maid. I don't want tacos. If you do, make your own dinner. Here's the frying pan. I'm having tacos. We don't have to be mean about it. Just say, if none of these things on the menu work for you, make your own. And that's okay. I love you very much. I mean it. Go cook. If others call you cranky, then so be it. Crank on. But when creations of divine love love themselves enough not to be taken advantage of, nobody will take advantage of you. Eleanor Roosevelt said that. Nobody can take advantage of you without your permission. I give permission for people to take advantage of me. When I say no, it isn't going to happen anymore, it doesn't happen. Divine detachment is also a powerful tool here, stepping back from it and saying, here's what's going on. Here's what my feelings have been about it, what Judy teaches in nonviolent communication. I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling cranky because this is happening, and here's something that I would like to see happen, and then you open dialogue, and you find a way to make it work. But we have to do it with joy as well. Joy is a very powerful tool to empower yourself to have what you want. An example of this is a few years ago at a comedy club, the hostess had to step away from the desk, from the reservation desk, to take a call. She asked the comic who was hanging out at the bar with the other comics waiting to go on if she would watch the stand for a couple of minutes. The comic never sat anybody. She never worked in a restaurant, didn't know what she was doing. She said, okay. So she's waiting, and into the restaurant, into the bar, came a very cranky woman and her husband. The comic brought them to their table, and she hated the table. She wanted a different table. She was hitting the comic with her program. Hey, I want this one. I want that table down there. Not realizing this woman was not the hostess, but she was about to go on stage in a few minutes. She said, she kept hitting me with a program with my picture and bio in it. She said the irony was amusing to her. Since the comic didn't really care, not her job, she wanted to sit where the reservation was. So she said, okay, go sit. She went back to the desk, and a couple of minutes later, in came the reservation of 8 rowdy college kids. The hostess returns, and the comic goes and rejoins her friends. The woman marches up to the comic and yells about how her other waiter, the real waiter, brought her the wrong wine and that she deserved a free bottle for her inconvenience. The other comics are falling on the bar, cracking up, of course. So the show starts, and this woman is the first comic to get up. She goes up, and she brings the bottle of wine with her. And Mrs. Cranky goes completely white. The comic goes to her and plunks the wine down, says, the free bottle for you. And tells the sold-out house about a new friend for 5 minutes. Exactly what happened. The audience is cracking up over this, and the woman goes rigid. The comic gets a huge hand for her act. The next comic comes up and brings another bottle of free wine, plunks it on the table, and does 10 minutes on Cranky Lady. The next 3 comics come up and they bring 3 free bottles of wine. And the same ribbon goes on and on. Well, after the 5th comic and the 5th bottle, the woman decided she had enough, and she marches out with her husband in tow. The whole club by this point is on the floor, just screaming with laughter, and the 8 college dudes end up with 5 free bottles of wine. Woohoo! What began with extraordinary negative energy, which kind of brought down the whole house, and it has, was turned into 2 hours of absolute joy. The energy was turned back, and the woman had a choice. She could have laughed at how silly she was and have enjoyed 5 free bottles of wine that the universe gave her, or she could have stood her ground, which she did, became more righteously angry and cranky, and marched out. She could have laughed at the ridiculousness of what the ego does sometimes as everybody else in the club was laughing at. So it's up to us. Are we going to approach it with joy or with anger? It's my choice. It's the divine detachment, it's the divine perspective on what's going on in my life. So acknowledge. We have to acknowledge, first of all, what we're going through. Yeah, I am upset, and when we speak about it, that tends to let a lot of the air out anyway. The next step is to take care of your issue yourself, with the one you may be upset at. Again, triangulation doesn't work because we're not going to where we need to. Go to a trusted friend, the one that you are angry or upset with, and say, here's what's going on in divine detachment and divine love. Don't spew your stuff. It doesn't work. It never works because all of a sudden we're putting walls up. The third is to find the humor, because life is really funny. It really and truly is. When we step back from it and we look and say, this is a divine comedy going on this planet quite often. It puts it into perspective. And remember what our elder brother said. He said, in faith, tell the mountain, as I mentioned earlier, to move, and it will have no choice but to obey a creation of God. Tell your life what to do with passionate faith, and it has no choice but to obey. What we tell the universe all the time is what we're living today. What our belief about what life has to be is what we are seeing when we wake up every morning. Crankiness is actually called to bring God to whatever we're doing, to let it go, and to let Spirit reveal what to do next. We're not here to ignore it. We're here to meet it with love, meet it with joy, meet it with faith, with compassion for ourselves and for others who are going through the same thing. So crank on. And then let it go. Take a breath. Let go. Take another breath. Center yourself in your chair. Close your eyes. Now it's the time we get to let it go. Go to Spirit within. Most of this can be let go when we go to our hearts. We do the preparation work of going within, letting Spirit do the work, and then when we go to others, the work is already done. Breathe in. If you're feeling anger, bring light to it. Bring understanding to it. Bring detachment to it. Bring love to it. And we remember the words of our elder brother, the great teacher. If there's a challenge in your life, tell it to move out of the way. It has no choice. What really happens is transformation happens. There really is no mountain. The only mountain is the one we created in our minds. When we see the truth, it becomes an anthill. It's my choice to see it as a large problem or a lesson to go through. I choose today to see the lesson, the teaching that will remind me of my oneness, of my power, of my joy, of my compassion, of my light, of the good within me. There is only one power, one presence, God the good. Not God and or God or. Only God. Only the pure light of love, joy, power, wholeness, fullness of all good. Right here, right now. Not later. Not it will happen. It is happening. As I affirm it and move on it, it shows up. If it hasn't so far, let go of the anger, let go of the fear, and know that you are in a safe place to remember that truth. We begin with the body temple, this wonderful divine miracle that moves us around the planet, is blessed, is holy, is good. We bless every inch of it, every muscle, every corpuscle, every fiber, every atom of this wonderful being is healthy, whole, and strong. If it doesn't feel it, we acknowledge that and then we move through that to the truth. I am centered in the healing power of God. My mind and body responds to these words, to this feeling, to this energy, to this life powerfully surging through my body head to toe. I get to call this body whole, powerful, strong, pain-free. And then I watch it at work. I see the power of Spirit doing its powerful work right now, right here. I remember also that I am prosperous and successful in all that I do. I am on this planet by divine appointment. I came here for a purpose, for a reason. I have a gift to offer that brings my abundance and is a blessing to others as well. Whether that's through my work, through my talents, through my smile, through my prayers, through simply being an awakened spirit. I am doing the work of God. There is no lack in my life today, tomorrow, or any other time. I accept my good here and now. And I remember that the light of God reveals my next steps in life. I know what to do. I know when to do it. How? When needed. I know when to stop and not do something. I know what to say and how to say it. I know when to remain quiet and listen. It's all guided by Spirit within. And all is well with my world. In the quiet of my being, just for a moment, all it takes is one brief, silent moment in Spirit. In this quiet, I know, I hear, I listen, and I agree with the truth of God. Breathe in and let go. One brief moment. And I know that I know. I remember to listen today, to love, to honor, to celebrate my life and those lives around me. How grateful we are to remember I am at peace concerning my life. God is at work. God is in charge. And I call it good. And so it is.